Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into Your Bizarre Adventure, a game where stands are everything. Whether you're grinding levels, aiming for the top of the leaderboard, or just trying to flex on your friends, the stand you choose can make or break your journey. But let's be real, picking the perfect stand? Not exactly a walk in the park. Each one has its own quirks, strengths, and sometimes frustrating weaknesses. So, in this video, we're breaking it all down with a tier list ranking every stand in YBA from the absolute best to the ones you might want to avoid. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out, this guide will help you figure out which stands are worth your time, and which ones you should leave in the dust. Buckle up, grab your Rokakaka fruits, and let's get started. I'm quickly moving on to the video, and I'm ranking stands in Your Bizarre Adventure. Before we start, if you enjoy these types of list videos, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. Enjoy watching. The stands in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Killer Queen, Mr. President, and Tusk Act 1. Oh boy, let's dive into some truly questionable choices, shall we? These D-tier stands in Your Bizarre Adventure are like the cousins you invite to family game night, knowing they'll lose spectacularly, but somehow make it entertaining. We're talking about Killer Queen, Mr. President, and Tusk Act 1, each with their own, unique way of underperforming. Let's unpack the chaos. First up, Killer Queen. Now, on paper, turning anything into a bomb sounds ridiculously overpowered, right? Well, in practice, it's more like handing your opponent a lit firework and hoping they don't dodge. Killer Queen is a close-range stand with some range attacks sprinkled in, but the clunky mechanics and low damage output make it feel less like Yoshikage Kira's elegant death machine and more like a knockoff firecracker. That 2.5% chance of rolling it? Trust me, the disappointment hits harder than the stand itself. Moving on to Mr. President, and oh, this one's a gem. Or should I say, a key. You're literally carrying around a turtle stand that functions as a glorified safe room. Sure, the gang in Golden Wind made it look cool, but in the game, you're trolling or hiding. Combat? Forget about it. You'll need a specialty to even consider fighting, and even then, it's like bringing a pillow to a sword fight. Still, if you're here to meme or avoid sweaty PvP players, Mr. President is your go-to. Bonus points for style though, Coco Jumbo is adorable. And then we have Tusk Act 1, the baby steps of Johnny Joestar's iconic stand. This thing has potential, eventually. But Act 1, it's like bringing a squirt gun to a firefight and expecting everyone to respect your power. Sure, it's paired with spin and vampirism in PvP, but let's face it, people only grab this for the upgrade path to Acts 2, 3, and 4. The grind to evolve it is real, and until you do, you're stuck feeling like the weakest gunslinger in the Wild West. So there you have it, folks. Killer Queen, Mr. President, and Tusk Act 1, a trio that keeps you humble. Are they fun? Absolutely, if you're in it for the memes. But if you're aiming for competitive greatness, maybe keep these in the collection as reminders of where you don't want to be. Because hey, every stand has its fans, even if they're mostly here for the laughs. The stands in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Beach Boy, Hermit Purple, Hierophant Green, Silver Chariot, and Sticky Fingers. Let me tell you something wild about Your Bizarre Adventure. Sometimes the stands you least expect end up packing the most surprising punches. Take Beach Boy for instance. I know. The fishing rod stand? Really? But hear me out. At first glance, Beach Boy might look like it belongs in a local bait shop, not in battle. But this underrated gem has its moments. Sure, it doesn't have a barrage, and its straight-line attacks are about as easy to dodge as a toddler throwing a tantrum. But get this, its hook pierce can bleed right through Love Train. That's right. It pierces through even the toughest defenses. Plus, its sneaky rod pull can combo into some devastating setups. Just don't let a melee fighter get too close, or Beach Boy might be reeled in instead of doing the reeling. Now, Hermit Purple, Joseph Joestar's vine-covered answer to every GPS ever made. On its own, Hermit Purple feels like more of a utility tool than a battle-ready stand. It's basically Google Maps with thorns, right? But when you pair it with Hammond, oh boy, things change. Suddenly, you've got consistent damage, traps, and the ability to annoy your opponents to no end. Imagine swinging through the map with grappling hooks while setting up thorny surprises for anyone who dares to chase you. It's like you're playing the ultimate game of tag, but with vines and a whole lot of style. And then there's Hierophant Green. This one's a bit of a head-scratcher. On paper, it looks like someone drew the short straw for stands. Low power, slow speed, barely any moves. It's not exactly a stellar first impression. But Hierophant Green doesn't need flash to shine. The secret lies in its chip damage and long-range play. Emerald Splash, infinite range. Emerald Barrier, stun central. Marionette control, absolute chaos. This stand isn't about brute strength, it's about wearing your opponent down while keeping them on their toes. Just watch out for time stop. Hierophant Green is about as effective against that as a wet noodle. Now, let's talk about Silver Chariot. This flashy knight might look like it just stepped out of a medieval cosplay convention, but don't let that fool you. With its dual rapiers and lightning-fast attacks, Silver Chariot excels in close combat. Its moves are simple but effective, making it a solid pick for players who like to get up close and personal. Sure, it's not as versatile as some of the others on this list, but if you enjoy precision strikes and the satisfaction of a perfectly timed slash, this one's for you. Sticky Fingers, though, that's where things start to get spicy. This stand isn't just about zipping things up, it's about tearing opponents apart in the flashiest way possible. Living zippers into zipper extension is the bread and butter combo here, juggling enemies between close-range chaos and long-range grabs. And don't even get me started on zipper explosion. That move is chef's kiss. It's the ultimate flex when you're mid-fight and want to remind your opponent who's boss. Sticky Fingers might be the most common stand in the game, but don't let that fool you. It's as versatile as it is destructive. What ties these stands together is their ability to surprise you. They may not be the flashiest, the strongest, or the fastest, but they all have unique quirks that make them stand out. Whether it's Beach Boy's sneaky bleed damage or Hermit Purple's mobility and traps, there's always something unexpected to discover. And that's the beauty of your bizarre adventure. It's not just about picking the strongest stand, it's about finding one that clicks with your playstyle and learning how to make it shine. So, which of these C-tier stands do you think has the most potential? Are you Team Fishing Rod, Vine GPS, or Zipper Beatdown? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to share your favorite stand moments. Whether you're rocking Beach Boy or flexing with Sticky Fingers, every stand has a story. And hey, sometimes it's the C-tier ones that end up stealing the show.
The stands in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right: Cream, Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap, Magician's Red; Purple Haze, Six Pistols, Star Platinum, The Hand, Tusk Act 2, White Album, and Whitesnake. Cream is a powerful, extra-dimensional stand with a unique ability to send anything it hits into a dark dimension inside its mouth, erasing it from the current reality. Its effectiveness largely depends on the user's skill and whether their opponent knows how to counter its moves. Cream's main strength comes from its snowballing effect once it starts removing limbs, but its attacks, especially Void Surprise, can be dodged if the opponent knows how to block. Despite these weaknesses, Cream can perform well when combined with stun abilities from other specs, and it works great with Vampirism due to its ability to evade the sun by entering the dark dimension. A 4% chance to obtain from a mysterious arrow. D4C is a stand that excels at zoning and crowd control, using a pocket revolver to detonate smoke clouds and unleash clones to overwhelm enemies. The stand's dimensional hop can counter time-related attacks, but is difficult to execute in a fast-paced battle. While D4C has a relatively low number of melee attacks, its high destructive power and use of clones make it effective at longer ranges. D4C's main weakness is its lack of status effect inflicting abilities, leaving it vulnerable to opponents who can stall or control the fight. It can evolve into D4C, Love Train with the Heart of the Saint's Corpse. Magician's Red is a strong, fire-based stand with pyrokinesis abilities that allow it to deal heavy damage with flame attacks. While the stand excels in raw damage output, it suffers from a slow and weak barrage, and most of its moves are blockable, making it vulnerable against agile or defensive opponents. Combining Magician's Red with Hammond or Sword Style can help mitigate these weaknesses, and it can be a solid choice for dealing damage in battle, though its lack of speed can make it harder to execute powerful combos effectively. Purple Haze is a poison-focused stand with the ability to deal potent damage through poison. Its poison can be upgraded to extremely lethal levels, though it cannot stack with itself. The stand can be combined with other status effects such as Bleed, Burn, and Freeze to further enhance its damage output. Despite its strong potential, Purple Haze's reliance on poison damage makes it a bit predictable, and its main drawback is the lack of versatility in its attacks, particularly if the poison isn't applied consistently. Six Pistols is a ranged stand that uses a revolver to fire bullets in various directions. The bullets can be redirected through the power of the 6 pistols themselves, giving the stand some flexibility in terms of attack angles. Its main strength lies in its ability to deal consistent range damage with omnidirectional shots, but its overall impact can be limited without sufficient coordination and skill in using the bullet redirects. It is effective at harassing opponents from a distance, but lacks the close-range power to deal significant damage without specialized support. Star Platinum is a highly versatile stand known for its exceptional speed and destructive power. It performs well in both one-on-one combat and multi-target engagements, with its abilities like Star Finger and Inhale providing excellent stun and combo potential. Star Platinum is capable of upgrading to Star Platinum, the World, gaining more overall damage and better AoE attacks. However, its strength lies in its melee capabilities, and while it can handle most situations, its reliance on close-range attacks can be a disadvantage against opponents with strong zoning abilities. The hand's ability to erase anything from existence allows it to deal significant damage and disrupt an opponent's mobility. While powerful, it relies heavily on erasure moves and can be countered if the opponent is skilled enough to block or avoid the attacks. The hand struggles against agile opponents who can outpace its slow, heavy strikes. However, its erasure power can be devastating if used properly, and it can be a powerful tool when paired with the right specs. Tusk Act 2 is a long-ranged stand that excels in redirecting nail shots and applying strategic pressure on opponents. It lacks physical abilities and mobility, relying primarily on its ranged abilities to do damage. While the ability to redirect shots can lead to mind games and unexpected hits, Tusk Act 2 is limited in terms of offense if its nail shots are on cooldown. It is often used in combination with Spin, which can lead to further evolutions, though its lack of versatility and physical presence leaves it at a disadvantage in some fights. White Album is a cryokinetic stand capable of freezing opponents and using ice-based attacks to deal damage and control the battlefield. Its utility comes from its ability to slow opponents and block attacks with the passive ice armor, reducing damage by up to 20%. White Album also features mobility through ice skating and Gently Weeps, which redirects ranged attacks. While it can be a solid tank and has good combo potential, it struggles with its relatively low destructive power and is often best used as a support in team-based play rather than for solo combat. Whitesnake is a stand known for its ability to manipulate and extract discs, although this feature is not yet fully realized in the game. It has a unique acid ability that can melt opponents and put them into a hallucinatory state. Whitesnake is part of a trilogy of stands, and upon evolving, it transforms into Seamoon, offering additional abilities and potential. Whitesnake's versatility lies in its unique abilities to control the battlefield through status effects, but it can struggle against opponents with faster, more direct offensive power. The stands in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Aerosmith, Anubis, Crazy Diamond, D4C Love Train, Gold Experience Requiem, Killer Queen Bites the Dust, Made in Heaven, Red Hot Chili Pepper, Scary Monsters, Stone Free, and the World Alternate Universe. Let's talk about some of the absolute beasts in your bizarre adventure. No, we're not talking about your average everyday stands. We're diving into the big leagues. We've got Aerosmith, Anubis, Crazy Diamond, and some other powerhouses you won't want to mess with. If you're looking to dominate your matches, these stands are the ones you'll want in your arsenal. First up, let's chat about Aerosmith. Now, this stand has come a long way, folks. It used to be the joke of the game, a barrage that barely scratched your opponent. Yeah, that was Aerosmith's claim to fame. But after a huge buff, this guy is a powerhouse. With massive damage boosts and moves that are hard to dodge, Aerosmith is now an incredible choice, whether you want to go on the offensive or back up your team. And let's not forget the massive hitboxes that make landing hits a breeze. Time Stop still gives Aerosmith a hard time, but otherwise, this stand is a damage-dealing monster. Next, we've got Anubis, the sword of the Egyptian god of death. This stand is all about precision and combos, making it a unique pick in the game. Sure, its base damage might seem low, but when you throw in abilities like supernatural swordplay and god of death, things get interesting. Anubis can apply poison and bleeding, and with moves like Enraged Fury, it's all about those long combos that can really catch your opponents off guard. The downside? No time stop resistance, which means against time stop stands, Anubis could be in serious trouble. but with the right skill, Anubis can hold its own. Moving on to Crazy Diamond, this stand is a game changer, especially when it comes to support. Crazy Diamond is perfect for players who want to be versatile, as it's got a little bit of everything: healing, combo potential, and great defensive abilities. The Yo Angelo move is fantastic for locking down enemies while you lay in some heavy hits, and the Crazy Wall is a lifesaver for blocking incoming projectiles. If you're playing in Steel Ball Run, you'll want Crazy Diamond on your team, especially because it can heal allies with heal mode. It's a perfect balance of offense, defense, and support. Now, let's talk about D4C Love Train. If you're in need of a stand that can really dish out damage while also protecting you from harm, this is your guy. With ridiculously high base damage and one of the fastest barrage speeds in the game, D4C. Love Train is all about overwhelming your opponents. Plus, the Love Train ability is a game changer. It redirects damage, making it nearly impossible to get hit. Sure, damage over time effects can bypass it, but when you've got the ability to block out almost all other forms of damage, you're already ahead of the game. Then there's Gold Experience, the stand of Giorno Giovanna. Gold Experience's niche is in its life-giving abilities, turning inanimate objects into living creatures. It's a great utility stand, and with the buffs it's received, it can now pack a real punch. With moves like Summon Frog Lifeform, you've got a lot of damage potential, and self-distribution makes Gold Experience one of the tankiest stands in the game. It might not have the same flashy moves as some of the others, but it's certainly not one to underestimate, especially in long fights where endurance matters. And of course, we can't forget Gold Experience Requiem. GR takes everything good about Gold Experience and turns it up to 11. Return to Zero is one of the most busted abilities in the game. It counters Time Stop, Time Erasure, and lets you de-summon other stands. That means if you're going up against tough opponents, GR has you covered. And with Awakening active, GR can deal some seriously devastating damage while your opponent is stuck in a cutscene, unable to fight back. It's a powerful stand, but it requires a skilled player to fully capitalize on its potential. So, whether you're into overwhelming your enemies with damage, supporting your team, or just being an all-around powerhouse, these stands will definitely serve you well in your bizarre adventure. Keep them in your roster, and you'll be well on your way to ruling the game. Alright, so today we're diving into some of the most intense and crazy stands in your bizarre adventure. If you thought the regular stands were powerful, wait till you hear about these. These guys are not just your average powerhouses. They come with unique abilities and some wild playstyles that can totally turn the tide of a battle. Let's break down what makes these stands so dangerous and fun to use. Trust me, by the end of this, you'll be considering adding some of these to your roster. First up, we have Killer Queen Bites the Dust, a stand that's all about time manipulation and explosive power. Imagine a bomb that rewinds time by an hour every time the victim exposes their identity. Yeah, sounds confusing, but when you get it right, it can mess with anyone in your way. It's got the looks of a humanoid cat with a cool purple-black aura and the power to obliterate anyone who falls into its trap. The downside? Well, it's got a long startup and a cooldown that'll leave you vulnerable. You've got to time your attacks perfectly, or else you'll find yourself eating dirt while trying to set up that big-time loop. Then there's Made in Heaven, the stand of the infamous Enrico Pucci. This one's all about speed, supernatural speed that lets you blitz through your opponents while they're still trying to figure out what happened. With double acceleration and time manipulation, you can move so fast, your enemies won't even know where you went. While its damage output might not be the highest, the sheer speed and control it gives you over the battlefield is insane. If you're up against this stand, prepare for some serious headaches unless you're packing a time stop ability like Star Platinum, the world to shut it down. Moving on to Red Hot Chili Pepper, a stand that's rocking an electric guitar and an insane amount of electric energy. This guy's got the power to manipulate electricity and use it in some wild ways. In your bizarre adventure, RHCP can amp up its attacks by filling a special meter, which makes its lightning strikes more dangerous. If you're playing this stand right, it's like being a rock star and an electrical powerhouse all in one. The catch? It's not as versatile in some situations, but when you hit that perfect rhythm, nothing will stand in your way. And then there's Scary Monsters, a stand that's like a freaking dinosaur. Yeah, you heard that right. Diego Brando's stand lets him transform into a dino or stay in a humanoid form, each offering different strengths. The dinosaur version's all about power, defense, and mobility, while the humanoid form lets you pressure your enemies from all angles. You can also summon mini dinosaur minions to add some chaos to the mix. Scary Monsters is a stand that rewards a balance of aggression and strategy, but it does require a hefty skill tree investment, so it's not for the faint of heart. Now, if you want something with a bit of finesse, Stone Free is the way to go. Jolene Cujo's stand is all about turning her body into strings and using that to manipulate the battlefield. It's like being a master puppeteer, controlling everything around you with incredible precision. The ability to move freely as strings gives you tons of mobility and surprise attack potential. However, it's not the easiest stand to use, and it's definitely on the rarer side. So if you manage to get your hands on it, you're in for one heck of a ride. Finally, we have the World, Alternate Universe, a stand that brings some serious ranged combat to the table. This version of the World focuses on knife throwing, smoke bombs, and even a revolver that can explode to ragdoll your enemies. While it doesn't have the same raw power as the original The World, it makes up for it with its clever crowd control and ranged abilities. The combination of projectiles and time manipulation makes it a versatile pick, especially when you can bait enemies into your smoke cloud and then surprise them with a well-timed explosion. It's got its counters, sure, but when you play it right, you'll be an unstoppable force. So, there you have it. These stands are not just about brute strength. They come with unique abilities that can completely change the way you approach a fight. Whether you're manipulating time, zapping opponents with electricity, or controlling the battlefield with strings and smoke bombs, these stands will make every match feel like a wild ride. Which one do you think you'd have the most fun with? Let me know in the comments. The stands in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Sea Moon, Chariot Requiem, King Crimson Requiem, Soft and Wet, Star Platinum The World, The World Over Heaven, Tusk Act 3, and Tusk Act 4. Alright, let's dive into some of the absolute heavy hitters in your bizarre adventure, the stands that make you feel like you've unlocked a cheat code to victory. First up, we have Sea Moon. Now, this bad boy is an evolved stand, and it's one of those that you'll see in the hands of players who know exactly how to use it. With the ability to move within stop time, it's got some serious crowd control potential. But here's the catch. Its moveset is a bit small, and some of its attacks can be parried. If you don't time things right, the whole thing could backfire. But when it does connect, you're in for a devastating combo. Gravitational Shift might have a slow startup, but once it lands, it's game over for your opponents. Plus, its quick and fatal moves make it a solid pick for those chaotic multiplayer brawls. Then there's Chariot Requiem. If you've got this stand, you're looking at a combination of patience and power. It's not all about raw damage, but about making your opponent play your game. Conqueror's Will stuns enemies, and when they're asleep, you've got all the time you need to make your next move count. The standout here is how you can use pilot mode, giving you a safe distance while still dishing out damage. Chariot Requiem's got this sneaky vibe, right? Like, it's low-key one of the best in Steel Ball Run because it forces everyone to take a nap, and that's your cue to make the kill. It's got the tools, you just gotta know how to use them. Next up is King Crimson, Diavolo's stand. If you're looking to dominate the battlefield, this one is a solid pick. The thing with King Crimson is that it's all about controlling time and space. Time Erase makes you immune to damage and gives you invisibility for several seconds, so you can just slip past enemy attacks like they don't even exist. But, and here's the downside, it's not invincible. Smart players will bait out the Time Erase, and if you're not careful, you might find yourself in a tricky spot. But when you nail it, King Crimson's damage output is unreal. If you've got this one, you've got a serious advantage, especially if you're using Epitaph to teleport behind your enemy. It's one of those, you either get it or you don't, kind of stands. Finally, let's talk about Soft and Wet. This stand might not have the same explosive power as the others, but it's got style and flexibility. The whole bubble stealing mechanic? Genius. It's perfect for setting up traps and dealing with opponents who think they've got the upper hand. Whether you're stealing properties or zoning enemies with your quick attacks, Soft and Wet plays a lot like Tusk Act 4 or Killer Queen. It's got that same burst style, but with a unique spin. And if you're feeling extra ambitious, you can evolve it into Soft and Wet. Go Beyond, which only adds to its already impressive toolkit. It's not the hardest hitter, but if you're a fan of strategic gameplay with a bit of finesse, this stand's definitely one to keep in your roster. We've got Star Platinum, The World.
This bad boy is like the upgraded version of Star Platinum, packing all that insane power, but with a little more flash. It's got that fresh Part 4 vibe with brighter colors and an intimidating size. Sure, the time stop might have gotten a little nerf, but don't let that fool you. SPTW is still very much a beast in the arena, especially when paired with boxing and Hammond. If you've got this stand, you're not just playing the game, you're controlling it. Now let's talk about the world, the stand that made DIO an absolute nightmare to deal with. This one's a close-range powerhouse, and it comes with the ability to stop time. Yeah, you heard me right. Stopping time for 5 whole seconds gives you the chance to lay waste to your opponent without them even being able to react. It's rare as heck, with just a 1.5% chance to get it from an arrow. But if you manage to snag it, you've got a serious contender on your hands. Just watch out for those road roller attacks. They're great if they land, but if you miss, you're in for a world of hurt. Still, being able to stop time and hit your opponent where it hurts is no small feat. The world over heaven is where things get even crazier. This version of the world is so powerful that when it first dropped, it shook up the whole game. We're talking about Reality Overwrite, which lets you ignore defense buffs and deal true damage. Plus, it's got a move that bypasses blocks, Heaven Ascended Knives, which makes it even more dangerous. But don't get too cocky. This stand isn't without its flaws. Some of its moves are a bit predictable and can be blocked, but even with those drawbacks, it's still one of the best options in your bizarre adventure. Then there's Tusk Act 3 and Tusk Act 4. If you're into long-range combat, these stands are pure gold. Tusk Act 3 brings in some serious zoning abilities, with low cooldowns that let you control the battlefield from a distance. It's great at keeping enemies at bay, and with its wormhole nails, you can even redirect attacks that miss. But if you're ready to evolve, Tusk Act 4 takes things up a notch. Infinite rotation lets you move freely during time stops, and its barrage adds some melee capabilities to an otherwise ranged stand. The downside? It's banned in casual Steel Ball Run, and while it's powerful, it's still not quite on the level of some other Requiem stands. Still, if you're looking to mix things up and surprise your opponents, Tusk Act 4 is definitely worth considering. The video ends here. See you in another video. Don't forget to subscribe.